Thank you everyone for coming. It seems like, I feel like the room is going to tilt on this end, but we're really excited about this event today. I'm Rosamond S. King. I'm the director of the Wolf Institute for the Humanities, which organizes the Hess Scholar in Residence and therefore has organized this event. But I'm not going to talk very much today because you're here to hear from these people and to kind of broaden the horizons about what you think a humanities event can do. I do want to start by acknowledging that we are on the land of the Canarsie and the Nyack people, which are subgroups of the Lenape people, and it is the theft of their land that has enabled us to be here. The land is also soaked with the blood of enslaved people. And we are in the newest official neighborhood of New York City, which is Little Haiti, which a lot of people on campus still don't know. So there's a lot of history here where Brooklyn College is. Before I say anything else, I'm going to invite up our illustrious dean of the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, Ken Gould, who is kind of an evangelist for the humanities. And he's gonna kind of give us a little welcome and tell you a little bit about what we're doing.
Thanks. First, I just want to thank Rosamond King for organizing the Hess Scholars events with the committee. The committee is awesome too. And Rosamond King is being an absolutely transformative force on this campus with the Wolf Institute, and so that really matters. So can we hear something for Rosamond? Okay. Let me just tell you how I see the problem. I'm going to do this really quickly. The problem is right now we have national trends away from humanities and social sciences disciplines on a broad scale. And there are a number of reasons for that. And one of the common reasons is there's a popular mythology about what majors actually lead to the best employment options. Right? People think that these specialized pre-professional trainings are what leads to the best outcomes in terms of long-term career success, and it's simply not the case, right? And part of our problem is, there's limited student awareness of the range of academic and career options. When you come out of high school, you don't know what the full range of career options are, and you tend to get channeled into a handful of what we call the big majors. Part of that is we have a weak advising infrastructure, right? We don't have enough advisors for the number of students that we have, so you don't get the kind of advising attention I would like you to have, and limited advising tends to favor the big majors, right? What should you go into? Psychology, accounting, right? The things that are obviously leading to what we think are obvious careers. Another barrier is the family parental pressure based on all of that, right? Students may have a love of some particular thing and they get the question, what are you going to do with that? You should do something that will get you a good job. And maybe your families don't have an idea of the full range of career options available to you, and they just want you to be safe, secure, get a good job with some health benefits and be okay, right? And that's how you get advised, right? But we also know more than that, right? We know that employers actually favor what humanities and social science majors develop. What do employers want? Critical thinking skills, strong communication skills, problem-solving abilities, leadership and teamwork, information synthesis and analysis. These are the skills that are going to make you adaptable and resilient in a rapidly changing economy and a rapidly changing society. Keep in mind, we can't envision what the economy of 20 years from now is going to look like. Right? When I was an undergrad, we didn't have the internet or cell phones. Right? So, clearly, we don't know what 20 years from now is going to look like as much as we may think we do. And we certainly don't know which specific technical skills are going to be valuable in 20 years and which ones are going to become obsolete. But we do know that humanities and social science skills will be essential to whatever the world of work will look like when today's students reach their prime earning years. Right? So what can we do about this problem, this gap between what we know is a good career path for students and what students and families tend to think is the safe choice for themselves, with their one college education? Well, we can disseminate good information to students and families through our brochures, through our websites, posters, social medias. Get the information about career paths out there. We can get good information to advisors, right? The more that we can do to get advisors the information about the range of majors, the more they can do for students in the limited time they have with them. We can work with the Magner Center and alumni, right, to get the word out on HSS majors and jobs, which is what we're doing here today, right? We can incorporate career paths into introductory courses and gen ed courses so students know what their options are much earlier in their college careers. And the goal of all this is really simple. The goal is to neutralize this fear of unemployability as a barrier to student pursuit of passion. Because what we want you to do, what we want our students to do, is to pursue their passion, right? We want students to study what they love, and we want them to love what they do for a living. And we want you to recognize that these are compatible goals. And that, in fact, is the whole point of higher education, to study what you love and be prepared to do what you love for a living. So I look forward to hearing from our alumni, from Matthew Harric, from our esteemed Hess scholar, Jose David Salidvar, today, about some of the exciting and perhaps surprising career paths that a degree in the humanities will make possible for you. So pay attention, I'm going to take notes.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean. And you should think about taking notes, because what we're hoping is that a lot of the jobs or the sectors that you're hearing about today might be things that you've never heard of before. So repeat after me. There are no stupid questions.
There are no stupid questions.
Thank you very much. So feel free to ask something super basic like, I'm not sure I actually understand what you do for a living, right? Because that's why we're here, is to give you some alternative options. You all received a packet as you came in, and I want to thank Pam Brown from the Magner Career Center and Seklima Roy from the Wolf Institute for the Humanities for helping to put those together. There's some brochures in there from different departments here at Brooklyn College, some information about the College of, the School of Humanities and Social Sciences. So there's some information in there, and you can also take some notes on those pages. What I'm going to do is give really brief introductions. I'm literally going to kind of say the person's name and their title, because I think they're going to do the best job of telling you about what it is that they do and kind of their path to get there. We're going to start with our 3 alumni, and I thank them so much for taking time out of their day to come back to Brooklyn College. Hopefully it's sparking some great memories for them. And then we have someone who works here at Brooklyn College, and then we have our Hess scholar who has experience both as a professor as well as helping to guide students like you to their dream jobs. How does that sound? Good? All right. So our first speaker is going to be, and I'm going to be looking at my phone just to kind of keep us on track for time, so we make sure we have time for questions. But our first speaker is Edwin Rivera, who is the project coordinator for the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
How are you all? So for those who don't know what the Brooklyn Navy Yard is, it's a mission-driven industrial park. It's on Flushing Avenue, not too far from here, actually a little bit of distance. And what is inside the Navy Yard is 400 plus businesses. We have 9,000 employees. And part of my job is I work inside the employment center in the Navy Yard. And what we do, we bring people from the local community around the Navy Yard and bring them inside of the Navy Yard. So the Navy Yard has $2 billion in yearly economic impact, and what we want to do is share that with the local community around. And that goes for college students as well. Part of my specific role in the Employment Center is I work with internship programs. Me and Jared Giles, who's another person I work with, we work with all the internship programs that happen all year long. We have 2 college programs. One is taking place right now, the summer internship we're interviewing for at the moment. And we have a credit-based part-time spring internship as well for college students. We also have a high school internship program, the STEAM Center. I'm not sure if anyone has heard of it, but in Building 77 on the Navy Yard, we built out the STEAM Center. We took the whole 3rd floor, and we made it for high school juniors and seniors to come in for half a days once a week, so they can enjoy some of the stuff we have on the Navy Yard, some of the businesses we have in the Navy Yard, and some of the pathways that they might pursue in the future. So what I do, to summarize it all, is I work with all the internship programs within the Navy Yard.
Thank you so much. And if you didn't notice, he said the word internship, I think, 4 times.
Put it out
Right?
there, we have internships.
I appreciate that. And Pam Brown, if you could just wave your hand a little bit from the Magna Career Center. So, of course, the Magna Career Center here at Brooklyn College can help you get to those internships. If you need to write an application, they can help you with the application. If you want an internship but you're not sure in what sector, they are here to help you. And I always say it's free, which means you're already paying for it with your tuition. So take advantage. And it's really hard for them to help you after you graduate. Sometimes people want to wait until they graduate to ask for help about their careers, but I encourage you to ask about it now. So thank you very much. Our next speaker is Tiffanie Williams DeGannes, who is a senior manager at the Ford Foundation.
Hi, good morning. I am so glad to be back on campus. I couldn't help but take pictures as I crossed Bedford Avenue after I parked my car. So I'm a senior manager at the Ford Foundation, and what is that? I'm kind of like an internal consultant. I work with almost every department inside the Ford Foundation, including grant making. So I do mainly operations, which includes finance, facilities, building. We did a building renewal project, which was a $250 million renovation. I worked with that team. We did a true cost project on trying to pay the true cost for grant making overall. I worked with that. So for departments that I work with, they usually have a leader who is doing the overall managing of their department, but they always need someone to help them actually drive the project home. And that's kind of what I do across the institution. And globally, I work with offices in Asia, Africa, and in Latin America. So I kind of, with my experience and the degree that I've received from Brooklyn College, has helped me to use that in a very wide range, not in such a narrow capacity. I think it's given me the depth and the skills that I needed to actually be an analytical thinker and work with different types of people, different groups of people, different cultures of people. And I think that that kind of undergirds me in my learning, my journey every day. When I talk to a coworker in Indonesia, that's different than talking to a coworker in South Africa. So those cultural differences do come up and you get to understand them because at an institution like Brooklyn College, you already have that experience here. So happy to talk more about it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And the Ford Foundation has probably funded some things on campus. I know the Ford Foundation helped to fund my graduate career, so they give away a lot of money for a lot of good things. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Terrance Stroud, and he works at the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, which known to a lot of us in New York as HPD, right? Where he is the director of the Continued Occupancy Unit.
So I guess you got the old bio.
I'm sorry.
But that's okay. So hello, I'm Terrance Stroud. I'm currently the Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Social Services, and I oversee...
Congratulations.
So I've been there for 4 months, so that's why you didn't receive the update. I would like to note, actually, before I begin, I always like to acknowledge people in the room that have had an impact on my life. So I'd like to acknowledge Professor and Chair St. Gupta of the History Department. So she's been really great. I had her when I was a student. And even though you've mentioned her, I would like to acknowledge Pam Brown, who does an amazing job advocating for students as far as internships. And I work with her on a lot of pre-law programs. So I just want to acknowledge these two amazing individuals. So as a Deputy Commissioner, I get to do really cool things. I've worked for the city for over a decade. This was I'm very goal-oriented. So the Department of Social Services has a mission, and we have basically 2 units that we manage. We manage HRA, which is which basically the focus of HRA is to combat inequality. So they oversee the food stamps program, the cash assistance program, rental assistance programs, and also the Department of Homeless Services, which the name is inferred, which they manage the city's entire shelter program. And I've been there for 4 months, and I get to oversee training, workforce development, and logistical support. Our workforce is about 17,000 people, so I'm really excited to have that opportunity to bring that leadership. It's been interesting as a person that was in another agency, I've been with the city for over a decade, to come there and give a new perspective. I'm going to always talk about my history degree because one of the reasons that I chose to become a history major was because of the interdisciplinary aspect of it. I wanted to choose, and I encourage you to follow your passion, but you also want to choose a major that's versatile. no matter where you go in life, you want to choose something where, hey, I want to move into this industry, I can do that. One of the things that you're going to find out, and statistics have proven, is that regardless of what you do as a professional, for your generation, the majority of you are going to have at least 3 different types of careers. You're going to start off doing this, transition to this, and most probably end with this. So you want to choose a major that will kind of guide you in that path. So I really wanted to go to law school. My grandmother said, Terrance, you'll be the first person to go ahead and do that. And I was encouraged by it, but I really wanted to focus on something that had critical thinking skills. And from history, I got to do that. And we'll talk more about that, but I'm going to emphasize it over and over. You're here because people invested in you, your family invested in you, and you've invested in yourself. So I really encourage you to accept the challenge and take advantage of the opportunities that are around you.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited about you being a deputy commissioner. we need good people in city government, and so as people rise up through the ranks, it's really wonderful to see. So, our next speaker is Matthew Harric, and here at Brooklyn College librarians have the title of professor, so Professor Matthew Harric, who is an outreach and education librarian right here at Brooklyn College. You might have seen him out at the desk sometimes.
Yes. So what do librarians do? When I ask the high school students that I work with, the STAR students and Brooklyn College Academy, they say 2 things. They say you make sure the books are in order and that you be patient with everybody who comes into the library. And both of those things are not untrue, but there is so much more to being a college librarian and academic librarian. I work at the reference desk throughout the week, Monday through Friday, and I work with students and staff and faculty with research questions. I liaise with the 4 departments in the School of Ed, LGBTQ studies, children and youth studies, like I mentioned, the early college high school programs, and I curate the juvenile literature collection here at the library. What does that mean that I liaise with these departments and with these programs? It means I work with the faculty to make sure that the library has the resources that their students need to be successful when they're working on their projects and their research. It means that I work with faculty and students in these departments who are enrolled in courses with research components that need library assistance. So they come to the library and they meet with me, and I show them how to use the library's resources, which ones are best for their research, and how to search properly and effectively and efficiently. And when I do have some free time, I buy books. And when we have money, I buy books. So there is a component to add resources to the library's collection, both print and electronic. And you mentioned outreach. I do a lot of outreach here on campus. I work with populations of students that maybe don't have traditional connections to the library, such as transfer students. I'm working with a lot of transfer students right now to figure out the ways that the library can reach them to make sure that they know about us once they get here to Brooklyn College.
Thank you.
Sure.
And finally, we have Professor Jose David Salidvar, who is our Hess Scholar in Residence. His regular gig is that he is a professor at Stanford University and has a number of kind of different capacities as part of your job there that you'll tell us about.
Right. So just briefly, I'm delighted to be here at Brooklyn College, and I've had an exciting week so far, so I can't wait for the rest of the week. But I guess I'm going to reiterate a little bit what everybody said. I wear many different hats at Stanford. I'm a professor, first of all, and I teach literature courses basically to a very STEM-oriented student body. Stanford admits every year 1,900 students, and in their first year, 1,600 of them take a Computer Science 105A and 106B. 1,600 of the freshmen entering class. So we know what my student population is like. They're wonderful students. Many of them face the pressures that the dean spoke about. It breaks my heart when students come into me and saying they want to be a literature major, but that their parents will stop paying their tuition. It's heartbreaking. What parent would do that to their children? Well, we know now which parent will. So what they do, because they're so committed to their education, is they double major or they minor. They minor in comparative studies in race and ethnicity, which I was a former director of. I still teach in that program. All my courses are cross-listed with that interdisciplinary program at Stanford. And what I find from those students is that they work really hard to do their computer science courses or engineering, and then they read literature at night. Amazing, almost like what Marx wanted to do in the Manifesto, to be a fisherman in the morning and to be a radical philosopher at night, something like that. And so those are the students I see at Stanford. They're extremely well read, they're committed, they're wonderful students. I mean, I have taught at big public universities, and very good ones, like University of California, Berkeley, so they also were wonderful. So to reiterate what the dean was saying, your degree is signaling that you have the tenacity, writing skills, critical thinking skills, that you have an intrinsic intelligence when you major in the humanities. That's what the humanities signals to your employers. At least that's my sense of teaching now for over 30 years and teaching, sending students to law school, especially when I was at Berkeley. Almost all of my students went to law school or to medical school or some business school. Many went into PhD programs. Berkeley produces the most PhD students in the country. And so that was what I did for a good part of my career, write letters of recommendations for my students. Now, when I got to Stanford, things changed a bit because, as I mentioned, most of my students are STEM students or computer science students. And they bring these different skills with them. But so I want to kind of reiterate that employers seem to be like the idea that you can think about ideas, that you can explore ideas more deeply in your life. Perhaps that's a more ideal notion of why I became a professor, because I was well mentored as an undergraduate. I had a great mentor when I was a graduate student. They didn't prepare me that I'd be writing 100 letters every year for recommendation, but they don't teach you that in grad school. But that's how we be, as they say. So you've acquired the right mix of skills to succeed in work, and basically for an entry-level job, it would seem to me. Those are the skills that you get from either being a history major, English major, a sociology major, any of those majors that are bringing you those skills. But I was reading something this morning about what are the soft skills that employers also may be wanting to know about. And I think as a professor of literature, this is what I think we can do in the humanities. That when you read a work of art, you read a novel, a poem, a short story, in the humanities, that can enhance your creativity. I mean, what I really want to impress upon you is the role of our imagination. We have imaginations, and we can think about alternative worlds. That's what fiction does allow us to think about. It's the ability to communicate. And I guess there's new work in psychology that I'm reading for my colleagues at Stanford, that reading literature, imaginative literature, creates empathy, a feeling of empathy. And I think that's what we need in our world, empathy, reciprocity, and I think that's what the humanities can give us, empathy and sympathy. So these are some of the skills I do. If I could just say a little bit about what I also teach as a professor of literature, is that when we read a book, or when I've read a book, one can stage oneself as someone else. So when I read a story by, let's say, Junot Diaz, Oscar Wilde, I'm not Dominican American, I'm Chicano, I'm from the US-Mexico border, but I try to imagine what would it be like to be a Dominican? What is it like to be Oscar de Leon? What's it like to be Junior de las Casas or Lola? I could even imagine what Lola de las Casas is like. And so reading allows you to see yourself as someone else. And that's the source of what I'm arguing in my work, is what we call in literary studies aesthetic pleasure. We get pleasure from imagining ourselves as somebody else. We also have this transfer that happens, which is not I'm projecting something onto the text, but the text is projecting something onto me. I mean, I don't want to get carried away with what I do and what I teach my students and what we all do when we read, but I think I like this idea of we can empathize, we can create sympathy by reading about characters maybe who are from a different class position than we are, not as privileged as we are, and creating some kind of empathy with them. And so when I was teaching in Berlin this summer, the professors of Germany were saying, that's why they read minority US literature, because it teaches them something about a world they know nothing about or little about, and they imagine that we can create a better democracy in this case, that's social democracy in our reading. So I'll stop there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Get your questions ready, because I'm going to ask the first question, and then I'm going to turn to you. I realize that only Terrance Stroud actually told us what he studied here at Brooklyn College. So I'd like for each of you to tell us what degree or degrees you have. And several of you have been in your positions, or have been in your fields, I should say, for a long time. You have, words like director and coordinator and manager. And our students, of course, are often going into entry-level positions. So in addition to telling us what degree or degrees you have, I'd love for you to say one skill or trait that you feel like an entry-level person, really helps an entry-level person to succeed and perhaps to advance in your career.
Sure. So I was a political science major here. I learned under Professor Theo Harris, Janet Johnson had some classes with as well. And what I took from them was the dedication to the work. I wanted to figure out what the problem is and how to solve the problem. In my job, we try to focus heavily on the local community around and some of the college students in the CUNY system. And so to get to that point, we have to understand where the issues are, where and why we want to help those communities of people. What we do also, we reach out to people in NYCHA housing, because if you see the Navy Yard, it's surrounded by NYCHA housing all around. And what we want to do is really focus on how to get them into the Navy Yard and how to get them full, respectable jobs inside the Navy Yard. So back in the end of last year, we had the Wegmans. I'm not sure if anyone has heard of Wegmans, but the first Wegmans to be in New York City is coming into the Navy Yard, and it's happening at the end of this year in fall. And part of that plan to get there, we wanted to get 1,000 applicants from NYCHA housing to be the first ones to apply for Wegmans, and I was part of that project. And I went back to going to school and learning about NYCHA housing and people they're living within NYCHA housing, and it gave me meaning into what I was doing with that project. We went from NYCHA housing to NYCHA housing, getting signatures. We got over 1,500 people to sign up. Actually, about 800 came in to interview with Wegmans, and I don't think I would be in that position unless it was for what I studied here in school and all of the background that I had to pick up before I went into that role as project coordinator, and to help out all those people who are around the community of the Navy Yard. It was something that really brought me back to school.
So I did political science too. And I went to school for 6 years part-time till I finished, because I had to work full-time and go to school part-time. So I went to school at night and on the weekend, and I was like so grateful that they had like classes on Sunday. Like if there was like 1 or 2 classes, I was like scheming to find them. But I had to work full-time. My mom died when I was 19. So I had to figure it out. I had to figure it out really fast. And the train was moving, and it was either I was going to get on the train, or I was going to try and grieve for the rest of my life and not figure it out. So I think coming here and having other students who are committed to finishing, having advisors who are like, just stick with it, just go through with it, you'll go part-time, just be committed to it. And I think commitment is the biggest thing you can take away from it. Because you will have circumstances happen. You will have things happen in your life that you can't anticipate, is what I've learned. And being committed to your education and being committed to finishing is what's most important. And that same commitment that you have to your education, you're going to need to take to your job, right? So when you go to a job, entry-level jobs are competitive. Your competitor is from Harvard. And I remembered when I got my job at the Ford Foundation, I looked at the COO and I said, you're going to find someone who's smarter than me, but you're not going to find someone who can work harder than me. If you can do political science, you can work really hard, right? You can read, you can write, you can articulate, I can talk to anyone, but those are skills that you get doing your degree. But I really want to stick to the commitment piece, because it's easy to shift and change and do what's new and fun and cool, but really stick to being committed to what you're doing. Because if you shift, then you got to start and stop. You got to start and stop. Being committed gives you that grounding you need to actually say, you know what, yes, I'm going to take that opportunity. Someone mentioned a job over here at the city. Let me follow up on that. You're going to think about being committed to what you want to do and not just say, oh, well, I'll do it tomorrow. No, be committed and do it. Follow through and do it. And I think that that is very key to finishing school. It's going to be key to getting a job and keeping a job, right? So we don't want to just get the job. We actually want to keep the job. And then I went on to, as if I hadn't had enough of school, I went to Hunter College and got my master's in urban policy. I think a big part of me with the humanities overall was I wanted to see what I did in everyday life. So I didn't have to try and piece it together in an accounting degree or another popular, it was something I saw in my everyday life. I saw the city around me. I saw gentrification happening around me. I saw, the people and the culture shifts. I saw these things happening for real. And I didn't have to try and find a connection to it because I'm a human. It's a human natured thing. And it felt very real to me that, okay, wait, I'm studying this and this is actually happening. Like, when Obama was elected president, that actually happened, right? Those were significant things in our human history that we look back on. But the fact that I was studying political science, urban policy at the same time was just a phenomenal experience for me.
Yeah, that's great. So for me, I'll go back to the versatility part. When you're trying to enter the workforce, you're competing with many people. And like you said, some of them can be Ivy League. Doesn't matter what their background is. We all have a contribution to make, but you have to learn to be the best marketer. You have to learn how to market yourself. I've done so many interviews, and I've seen people that lack the ability to translate what's written here on the resume to us, right? I mean, there are people where, like, I'm looking at them and I'm saying, like, you're really good, I can tell. I'm trying to help you get the job at this point, which is already competitive, especially city jobs, the stability, the pension plan, all of those types of things. But you have to learn how to market yourself. That's why I always encourage people to work with the Magnus Center and really take advantage, again, of the opportunities that are made available to you. For me, again, I chose history because of the versatility, but specifically the critical thinking skills, right? And I got to write a lot. I got to do research. Those are skills that are transferable to whatever industry you want to enter. But you got to be able to sell it. By a show of hands, how many people here have a LinkedIn account? All right? If you do not have a LinkedIn account, you are doing something wrong, right? And I'm going to be very serious about that. You can have a Facebook account. When you go to interview, people do check your Facebook account. So if you have some stuff there that might be a little bit suspect, please make it private, especially on Twitter. Because I've seen many people that have just removed themselves from the hiring pool by some, and I'll just leave it at that. But really, really think about it. LinkedIn is a professional network that's free. Why aren't you taking advantage of that? Why aren't you going to the Magnus Center for internships? I always say to people, and I've worked with different schools, I don't care if you think career services is great, I don't care if you think they're horrible, but one thing that they do have that nowhere else has is they have the network. They have a network of people that have come back and offered themselves up, examples, to be of assistance to you. So think about what you should be doing. So for example, if at the end of this you say, well, I got to rush to class, you just did yourself a disservice. You have people that came here to meet with you. Why aren't you going to stop and shake everyone's hand and try to find out something about them? You need to network. That's really important. That's how you enter the workforce. Because over time, we're all going to build up reputations, right? But you're just entering. So you have to find a way to distinguish yourself. So tap the network that exists in your school and tap the network that exists in your family. I also challenge you to tap the network that's in this room. I can't tell you how many times you're just sitting next to a person that might have a perfect connect for you, but you haven't taken the opportunity to get to know them. So I challenge you to take advantage of that network that you currently have and find more people and expand your network.
I think the quality that was and is most important to me, that got me to where I am today, is curiosity. I was a chemistry major for my first semester in college, so I guess curiosity and flexibility, because I decided by the end of that semester that it wasn't working for me and that I needed to make a change. So the following semester I took courses in anthropology and English literature and sociology. And I really started to enjoy English and American literature, and that's what my humanities background is in. I have an undergraduate and a graduate degree in English and American literature. I would have been a medievalist, but that's a different life and a different story. And so as I progressed in my career as a lit major, an English major, I became more and more curious. The better I got at reading and talking with students and the professors in the classroom, I wanted to know more about what the authors were saying. What does she mean when she makes this character do this? Or what does he mean when he makes this cultural, religious, mythic reference? And so what do you do when you have those questions? You look it up, right? When I finished my master's degree in English, I was looking for work. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I didn't want to get a PhD. I knew that I maxed out at the master's level. But I also knew that I wanted to be on a college campus. I felt very comfortable and happy on a college or university campus. So I was looking at jobs at those settings, in those settings, my prepositions. And I kept seeing jobs for libraries, and the work that they were asking applicants to do really interested in me, but I kept rejecting them because I wasn't qualified. And after about the 50th time, because things move very slowly, I realized, well, go get qualified. And I think what attracted me to these jobs, if I could trace it back, would be to an experience that I had in graduate school when a professor took us to the library to meet with a librarian to talk about a research project. And I remember that she was really interested in her job. She was very excited about it. And I thought, oh, I didn't think that that was something that I could do at the time, but it nested in my brain and manifested itself when I was doing my job search. And so then my job search became a program search. How do I get qualified? And I ended up getting my MLS. I went to library school at Queens College.
Tell us what an MLS is.
Master in Library Science. There's also MLIS, Master in Library and Information Science. I went to Queens College and got that degree. I was working full-time as well. It was tough. Mm-hmm. And then you were mentioning about moving up. I did some volunteer work at NYPL and their LGBTQ archives. Decided I didn't want to do archives. It was a little too behind the scenes for me. And then I ended up here. And I ended up here first as an intern, then as adjunct faculty, then as substitute faculty, and finally as full-time tenure track faculty. Yes.
Hi, I did my undergraduate degree in English and in Spanish. I was a double major. I mean, I had a sense that I was going to do comparative work, and I love what it is to be a comparatist. I also it kind of set me up for graduate school, where I did a degree in English with a degree in comparative literature. Little did I know that I would, because most of my career was a professor of English or ethnic studies, Chicano studies, but my minor in comparative literature got me a job at Stanford. I just never thought I would use it. So, you never know what's going to go along in terms of your many jobs you're going to have in your career. But I knew early on that I wanted to be a professor. I wanted to think. I wanted to write. And I did write a senior thesis. And I think I asked a question that took me a while to answer. And it was a broad question in my literary field. I think I said this yesterday for those who heard me. Is that, do the Americas have a common literature? And I knew that historians had answered that question with a definitive yes. But my colleagues in literary studies and literary history hadn't. They didn't see the relationship of the Caribbean to Latin America to Canada and the United States. It was a big project. People thought I was a little bit overly ambitious, but I wrote my dissertation on that, and it took me three books to answer that question. So finally, I think I answered it, and I'm on to other things. So one doesn't know what's going to happen if you have the opportunity to write an honors thesis. It just opens up a career. The other thing I forgot to mention about Stanford, what's particular, is that when my students finish and they're looking for work, those who are double majoring in literature and in computer science, there's something called values, technology, and science at Stanford. Many of them do that. All of my students, I don't write letters to law schools anymore. I don't write letters to medical schools for my students or business school. I write letters to Apple, Facebook, Google. They all get jobs at Google. in the humanities because it opens up the world of human relations, something called HR. They love this background in my students. And when I write the letters for them, they all get the jobs because they're all wonderful students. But never happened when I taught at Berkeley or other places. I get a return letter from Google saying, thank you for sending your students. Mostly students of color. They are trying to diversify the workforce. We're trying to diversify the university. That's what, I've been fighting this battle for 30 years. That's what we're trying to do. I've been lucky that I've directed 35, 40 dissertations in my career. All have gotten jobs, tenure-track jobs. They're all now better professors than I am, and they all publish their dissertations. I've been on another probably 100 dissertation committees. This is the work we do, and we love doing it. We read everything. We want to help you. But for those who are going to major in humanities, they want to work in the business world or in the computer high-tech industry, there is a place for you, and they're dying to have you.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Shout out what some of your majors are. Just shout them out. English. Creative writing. Creative writing.
Africana Studies.
Africana Studies. Political science in the back. Education. Great. So we've got a variety of people here. What questions do you guys have for our illustrious panel? Thank you.
I was hoping to find out what your entry job positions were when you first applied and how you found those positions.
And actually what I'm going to do is maybe take 2 or 3 questions and then they can answer them as a group. So thank you very much for that. Entry-level positions and how they found them. Another question.
I already have the idea of what jobs I want, but do you have like any other ideas for jobs for English majors or even day jobs?
Jobs for English majors, and you're going to talk to the Magna Center too because they're going to help you with that. Jobs for English majors just particularly, and?
Oh, I'm Anna. What majors are in humanities and is it valuable in a career?
And is it a valuable career?
Is a valuable major humanities?
Is the humanities a valuable major? Okay. And what counts as the humanities? The dean might tell us a little bit about what the humanities are generally and what they are here, and you might have some of it in your packet too.
Sure, I mean, you have a list here, right? What are our humanities and social sciences departments? Africana Studies, Classics, Communications, Arts, Sciences, and Disorders, English, Sociology, History, Judaic Studies, Modern Languages and Literatures, Philosophy, Political Science, Puerto Rican and Latino Studies, American Studies, Caribbean Studies, Children and Youth Studies, Communications, Linguistics, Studies in Religion, Urban Sustainability, and Women and Gender Studies. Or everything you think that's at the core of higher education.
And all of those are both majors and minors. Some of them have additional minors that aren't listed on those pages, so you can go to the websites or the brochures. And many of them have something called a dual major as well as a double major. So thank you. All right, so panelists, they wanted to find out about your entry-level positions, and those of you who majored in English, a little bit more about what you can do with an English degree.
In terms of entry-level position, so project coordinator is my first full-time role. So in the summer internship
You
program...
entered at a high level. That's nice.
So, yes. So the summer internship program that we have, I was a part of it for 4 years in a row. So every year of college that I had, I also was part of this program. And in the 4th year, I was a senior, I was ready to graduate, and so they didn't want to let me go. They offered me a temp role to continue on for a few more months. During those few months, position came up, project coordinator, and I applied for it. It was a little ambitious, but they thought that I had the experience in terms of I was on the other side of the table for the internship program, and so I stood out in terms of all the candidates that came for the position, and so they thought that I was the person suited best to handle the summer internship program from the opposite side because I had that experience of going through it for all 4 years of my college career. And so, like Matthew, I went from intern to working in my role, and hopefully I move up from there.
Great. Good pitch for the internship.
I've never had an internship because I started going to school when I was 25. I think when my mom died at 19, I was trying to figure it out for a long time. At that time, I think I was enrolled in paralegal studies at New York City Technical College downtown on J Street, and that didn't work out. And then I went to work. I worked at a social services agency for 4 years in a quality assurance department. And nothing drove me faster to getting a degree than someone getting a job that you could have gotten, but you didn't get it because you didn't have a degree or an education. And so working in that department, I trained 3 or 4 people who came in for a job that I was qualified to do, but they wouldn't give me this job because I didn't have an education. And so that just kind of set me down to kind of say, wait a minute, what am I doing and what is going on? And that sent me on my 10-year journey of doing a part-time education, but being committed to finishing. So that's why it took so long, because I didn't do full-time school and part-time work or internships. So I can't speak to what's the best entry-level position, because I've always worked full-time and went to school full-time, which is really, really challenging. So if you don't have to do it, I would not recommend it. But that was my experience. But looking at someone having what you can have is motivation enough for you to want to finish, is what I can leave you with.
That's great. And for all of our students who work full-time as well as going to school, that builds a lot of skills as well. I mean, when you can juggle your time management and your money to be able to do both of those things, I think that translates into a lot of career skills as well.
So as far as entry-level positions, before I begin, I want to kind of emphasize something to you. A lot of times you're going to get sidetracked by what other people have done. One of the best pieces of advice that my mom ever gave me was that the only person you should compete with is yourself. Set goals for yourself. Like, I literally have a list of life goals. Like, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do at this age, and it's okay if I don't make them. It's all part of learning and building character. But doing that kind of helped me to focus on what was important. So my path, I always knew was going to be a little bit different. I went to law school, and my goal actually was not to practice law. I wanted to take the critical thinking skills that I got from law school and from my undergrad and just apply them. I had what I called my 4 pillars. I was interested in politics, international relations, regulatory compliance, and government. So when I was in Brooklyn College, I networked. I made sure like everybody knew who I was. I was in student government. I started a chapter of the NAACP. I knew almost all the professors. And there was a professor who actually lived on the same block as me. When I graduated from law school, I actually graduated law school in 2.5 years, and it just happened to coincide with the time that he was running for state senate. And he won. And his name was, or is, Kevin Parker. So he hired me straight out of law school. And that was my entree into the workforce. And from there, I slowly started to build up my reputation. And he encouraged me. And he said, and this is political, but, the Republicans were in power, so I can only pay you X amount. You want to have other experiences? I'll help get you a job at the city council. I did that for a while. And I said, politics is interesting, but it's not my passion. And at the end of the day, if you're going to work really hard and give it your all, you need to have a passion about it. You need to be invested in it. You need to be an internal stakeholder. So after that, funny enough, I actually got into media. I worked for NYC Media, which is New York City's media company. It's the only municipality to have their own production station, radio station, and cable stations. And I got to do like FCC regulatory compliance, so that was a check for my list. And I managed relationship with all of our programmers. And one of those programmers, the relationship we had was with UNTV, which was the United Nations TV station. So I did strategic partnerships with them. There was a day where it was me, and at the time Ban Ki-moon, who was the Secretary General, and his version of the Secret Service and my programmers. So if you've ever watched movies from back in the day, aliens will come down and let's say, "Take me to your leader," and I can say, "I've met that guy." And it was just a cool experience that I'm working for the city and I'm hobnobbing with Ban Ki-moon. And it was just cool, and it was like, okay, that's another check, but again, not what I really want to do. It was a good experience. And then I started to do other industries, which all had nothing to do with each other. But again, the critical thinking skills that I had just kind of opened those doors. So from politics to media, media to technology. I had the privilege of working for Carol Post, who was the first woman to be the chair of Do It, which is New York City's IT agency. Then after that, I went to work in DCAS, which is the city's administrative services agency, and I did citywide procurement. After that, like you said, I got to work in HPD, and I got to oversee the day-to-day administration for the 5th largest Section 8 program in America, and I had a team of about 110, 115 people. Now, all those things have nothing to do with each other. They really don't, but it was the opportunity to make an impact. And we'll talk about how to make an impact and how to rise in your career, I guess, later on. But one of the things that I always advise you is wherever you are, see what the biggest challenge is. What's my manager's biggest challenge? And try to find a solution. You most probably won't succeed the first time, but you're cueing them into the fact that you're invested in this organization, and I believe, like you said, that you're solution-oriented. So that's what I did. I got a job working for State Senator Kevin Parker, who's a mentor and a friend, and that put me on my path.
At CUNY libraries, there are a lot of adjunct faculty. That's one way to enter the profession. If you're looking for full-time work, the entry level is typically the assistant professor level librarian. That's where most librarians are hired full-time, sometimes associate, but mostly assistant professor. Other careers for English majors, what are you considering?
Like writing for newspaper or magazine or screenwriting, and this is the last resort, but like teaching English to elementary, middle, or high schoolers.
Okay. What do other people think careers for English majors could be? Yes?
Advertising?
Advertising?
That I consider that too.
Okay. Publishing? Librarianship? Just saying.
You got to plug.
Keep in mind, too, that wherever you find yourselves in terms of your career, you might not on a day-to-day basis use that degree. I don't get to use my English degrees every single day here at Brooklyn College Library. I've had jobs where I didn't use them at all. I worked at a zoo. I worked at a school for children with autism. I wasn't talking about Victorian literature at either of those places. But you use at your jobs the skills that you learned while you were getting those degrees. And if you're lucky, you do get to use your English degree. I index for the MLA International Bibliography. I read scholarly articles about literature, and I catalog them, if you will. I index them so that researchers can find them when they're searching the MLA IB. So I did find a way to use my English degree during some of my hours when I'm here at Brooklyn College. Publishing is a career, editorial work, can you think of other?
We're both English people, so
We're all English people, yeah. Teaching, you said elementary school, you could teach elementary all the way PhD to college level.
All of the computer
students.
industries, at least in Silicon Valley, are looking for help from humanities in all kinds of managing positions. You have people skills, soft skills. You can communicate. They want that. They don't want just the engineers. They can hire those. They have a whole separate campus just with engineers. They want some of us in the humanities there.
Yeah, I would also say technical writer.
Technical, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, every single unit that you have in the workplace, there's that one person that when something has to go out, have that person proofread it because they're a strong writer. And 9 out of 10 times, that person was an English major.
I will second that. So those people are in communications departments at,
Yep.
at corporations. I used to work for American Express before I became a professor. I worked as a technical writer for a scientific center before I became a professor. I also ran my own business where I provided business skills for artists, and I managed some performing artists. So you can do all kinds of things because we know how to research. We know how to write. Most people in the world do not know how to write, but they want to communicate with other people. So as you said, they need people who know how to write. So there's definitely lots of different things. And again, Pam Brown is here from the Career Center who can help you think about some additional possibilities. So I think we've proven intrinsically the value of a humanities degree. We are all eating on a regular basis. We're dressed pretty well, right? We have a place to sleep. So it's real. Your parents want the best for you, and those of your parents who are worried about you being able to feed yourself, that is real. And so we're here to tell you so that you can tell them, no, I can go and make 6 figures with this degree, right? That is entirely possible. So let's take some more questions. Yes?
I was wondering if any of you had the experience, even by hearsay, of a human resources officer, an employer being like, sorry, no, we're not going to consider you because you're a humanities degree holder.
First of all, no HR person would be foolish enough to say that. HR people are no. Most HR people, like, just as a result of lawsuits and things like that, they try to find reasons that they're not going to tell you the reason why. You'll get the letter, like you said. You'll get the generic one, but they're not going to say it. Now, whether it was implicit is another thing, but I'm going to tell you, HR for humanities, that's one of the prime places where you're going to recruit, right? And most people, when I was at HPD, we recruited heavily from CUNY. The only thing that I would caution you against is just not knowing how to sell yourself. Like if I'm an English major, I'm not saying you're going to be cocky, but you're going to be like, with confidence, I have these writing skills. I can communicate. Whatever job you have, I have the transferable skills to achieve your goals. Whatever it is, I can do it. I'm a quick study. So if it's history, I can do this and this. You have to get your pitch down. And I think, again, I'm going to keep pivoting back to the Magna Center, but one of the things that you have to do as somebody that wants to enter the workforce, you don't know where you're going to see that opportunity. You don't know when you're going to see that person. You have to have your 30-second pitch down flat. This is who I am, this is what I have to offer, and these are the areas that I'm interested in. You have to, like that. And you practice. You should go to Pram's office and practice. When I was in school, the technology wasn't what it was now. So I had one of those old VCRs, and I taped myself giving a speech, and I realized that I was doing all types of stuff I shouldn't be doing. My facial tics, hands moving everywhere, and I've learned kind of how to control that. So you have to kind of work on the pitch because you want to stand out.
How many of you visited the Magna Center? Not enough. So you're hearing all the different things they can help you with. They can help you with that 30-second pitch. They can help you with a resume if you've never put one together or if you need to spruce it up. We have about 10 minutes left, so let's take a few more questions.
Could I just add
Yes,
to that?
sorry.
Because the director of the Mellon Mays program at Stanford, we teach our undergraduates to do that pitch, and it's called the elevator pitch.
Right, exactly. It's the
All
elevator, yeah.
If you see somebody in an elevator, you have to be able to say what you do, and my undergraduates are better than my PhD students.
Yep.
That's how good they are,
Yeah.
because they have that pitch down.
Yep, you have to. And to add to that as well, every job that I've had in this city, I always take a Brooklyn College intern. If you're not going to the Magna Center, I'm never going to meet you. No, I'm just being honest, right? I want you to think about all those opportunities that are out there that you're missing because you're not going there. And she's right there.
So I'll take a few more questions. Go ahead.
In terms of employees looking at your Facebook page, is it okay to create a if you already have stuff in there that you don't want them to see, is it okay to create a separate Facebook page?
You can create a separate Facebook page, but you really want to make sure you check your privacy settings. I think that's the key thing. So if nobody can see it, then it's not going to harm you. So make sure you're very aware of what the privacy settings are on any of your Facebook pages, I think is the key thing. Did you have a question? No?
No, I was just going to make aren't they amazing? They are the reason we are here. We are so proud of you guys. Terrance. I was a newly minted professor when I had Terrance for a student, and it makes you think, oh yes, I'm in the right profession. I get to work with people like this. But on the pitch question, that is so important, because first impressions, whatever people tell you, right? First impressions are incredibly important. I would even say prepare a couple of different pitches. As Terrance said, right, one of the values of a humanity degree is precisely you develop skill sets which are transferable to different jobs, right? With technology changing so much, if you are trained in a very narrow technical field, your technical skills will become obsolete at some point. Whereas what you've been hearing here is that the sorts of information finding, critical thinking, analytical skills, oral expression skills, the ability to communicate with people, the ability to make cultural leaps, right? The inhabit different worlds. Those sorts of skills it can take to a variety of different jobs. So read up on what a particular employer is looking for, and then foreground those skills that most directly address what the employer is looking for. You will be looking for a variety of different jobs, right? And so I would prepare 3 different pitches at least, different resumes too. I mean, we do this, even in academia we do this.
And you can see from Professor Singupta's passion, don't forget to talk to your professors as well, right? A group of students went to our dean and said, we're upset that there's no Indigenous studies here on campus. And he said, all right, well, I'll put some money behind that, and I'll, let you have some meetings and so on. And so not only are they doing something they care about, they have something to put on their resume that involves leadership on campus. They plan events, right? They're kind of instructing some of us professors as to what to do, right? So don't forget to contact your professors and say, what kind of things have you done outside of the university, or what kind of things can I do if I major in your field? I have lots of students who are in PhD programs and who are primary school and secondary school teachers. I also have a former student who's working at the Rachel Ray Show. That's what she's writing for, right? So we do all kinds of things, and our alumni do all kinds of things. You had a question.
I noticed that psychology is not listed. Is that considered humanities? And if so, what can we do with that major?
Well, any major that you have, you can go to the Magner Career Center and you can go to your professors to find out what to do with it. Psychology in different places, do you want to answer that? Falls in different ways?
Psychology is a broad field, so there are aspects of it. So at some schools it's in humanities and social sciences. Here it's actually in the natural sciences, because if you're doing neurobiology, right, that's obviously natural science, right? If you're doing social psychology, that's humanities and social sciences. So it has a range, but here it's housed in the natural and behavioral sciences school.
But we're still going to help you get a job.
Yeah.
Other questions? Any other final questions? Yes.
I've actually often been advised against going straight into grad school or graduate programs out of undergrad. Like, I was even told that it was immature because it looks like you can't go out into the real world, which I didn't necessarily agree with. But did any of you go straight into a graduate program, or you started work first?
Yeah, I went straight. I went from undergrad, then I worked on my master's in history, then I went straight to law school. I didn't want to take any breaks, but that's more of a mental thing for some people. That's also a maturity thing as well. I just wanted to be done with school. I was like, I'm going to do it, done, and then I want to work. So, but you have to know yourself. And one of the things I wanted to add as far as what employers are looking for right now, there's certain buzzwords that you should use. The big thing in the workforce, especially in Fortune 500 companies right now, is emotional intelligence. It is one of the most important things right now, because we're seeing more and more corporations where they're losing their workforce. They're looking at millennials, and it's difficult to retain them. Why? Because for some reason in the workforce, we've started to adopt and allow bad behavior. And people just don't want to have to deal with that anymore. So somebody that comes in and is good at their interpersonal skills, that's somebody that's very valuable. That's somebody that tends to rise up in an organization because they have good managerial skills. So I'd encourage you to do a lot of work, a lot of research on emotional intelligence, and find ways to incorporate that into your interviews.
I'm going to ask Professor Saldivar to answer that question as well.
Yeah, no, I went straight from undergrad to graduate to my first assistant professor job at the University of Houston, where I was also not just a professor, but I went there because they had a press for Latinos called Arte Público Press, and I was an editor. And I remember the editor, Nicolás Canelos, the publisher, just won a major award for the press for Latino studies and literature. And the first 2 manuscripts he gave me to read and to edit, the first was A House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. I said, oh my God, it was already perfect, and I didn't really add or anything. And Professor Canelos said, Jose, you have to edit. And he took out the Bible and started editing the Bible. Thank God I didn't touch a word of Sandra Cisneros. So I did go straight to from undergrad to grad school. I became a full professor at a very young age as a result of that, because I was very driven, which makes your life much easier when you're a full professor, because you're not being told how to behave most of the time. But I also figure that I lost something. I mean, a lot of my students are now taking a gap year. That's become much more accepted, I think, at least on the West Coast. Can't really speak about the East, but the only thing I could say about, though, that, I'm going to retire a year earlier. I made it a point. Since I did take a gap year, I'm going to make a point to retire 1 year earlier. That'll be my gap year.
Yeah, I'll confirm kind of what everyone else has said. It's partly about you yourself. I will say it was much more common. I mean, I know we look really good, but we're a little older than you. When we were going to school, it was much more common to go straight. And it was what was expected, but it was also, I was another one of those people who's like, I don't want to do this forever. But now it is much more common to take a gap year. There's also something called post-baccalaureate programs. Anybody heard of those? So these are programs that actually kind of provide you a gap year, and you can probably find out about some of them through the Magner Center and through the Scholarship Center here, where you might go to a university and just take like 2 classes for the whole year and do a research project or kind of be an assistant to a professor or something like that. Many of them have funding provided for them. So taking a gap year is not something that's frowned upon at all, I would say, generally speaking. But if you're one of those people who you know exactly what you want to do and you have that passion that you can put into the application, then I think that you can, you can definitely kind of expand upon that and go directly. I'm going to take your question, but I'm actually not going to have the panelists answer it. I'm going to kind of let it hang for discussion, and then I'm going to close out, because I do want you to have time, if you want to interact with our speakers, to be able to do that. If you want to interact with Pam Brown from the Magner Center and find out a little bit more about them as well. And actually, could you just say where the Magner Center is and how to contact people?
Building, 1303 James Hall.
Very easy to find. Okay, so we'll take our last question. Sorry? Sorry, go ahead. Last question. Yes.
My major is early childhood education. This is my first semester in Brooklyn College. I'm very interested to work in school, pre-K level, but I don't know how to get in.
Great. So
what
your
major I should
Yes, the Magner Center will help you with that, and your department also, the education department, they do that all the time in terms of getting people into schools. It looks like there's some other education majors nodding their heads, so there might even be some people in this room who can help direct you to where you can go for that. I want to end just by saying that we've had some stuff in the news around some people who were born with silver spoons in their mouths, right, and who might have gotten into college through a method differently than the blood, sweat, and tears that you put in, right? So you may not have access to that old boys network, but you do have access to a network, right? You have your professors, you have your alumni, you have the Magner Center, you have a really broad range of people right here at Brooklyn College who really what we want to do is help you live your dream. So please take advantage of all of us and help me thank our panelists for all of their comments. So please feel free to chat with Pam Brown, to come down and chat with our panelists. They have a few more minutes before they have to head off. And again, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
So I just have one thing I wanted to say to everyone. So one of the things that I also do is just give back. So I currently have a program that I created with my law school, Indiana Maurer School of Law. And basically, it's a partnership between Brooklyn College and IU, where if you get into our law school, you're going to get guaranteed scholarship and mentorship opportunities. So if anybody's interested in going to law school, just reach out to me. I'm right here. We'll talk.
Great.
And Pam and I usually coordinate that. And Medina, my law school, usually comes once a year. So thank you.